Hello, APG students. Welcome to today's library lesson about finding credible news. How do we find credible information online? The agenda for this lesson is to understand the reasons that people put false or misleading information online, learn the criteria for differentiating fake news from credible news, and practice evaluating the credibility of information found on the internet. Some vocabulary that we're going to be encountering with this lesson: bias means to show a strong opinion or preference for or against something or someone. A lot of times people are not aware of their bias, and we call that implicit bias. Corroboration is an additional source that confirms or supports a news story, article, or piece of information. When something is credible, it means we're able to believe it, that it's trustworthy. And to evaluate is to carefully examine something to figure out its value. Your homework, as always, is, if you feel safe and comfortable, talk to your family, this time about critically analyzing the news. Here are two helpful tools. One is a family activity where you can read pairs of headlines together that are about the same topic but in very different styles, and then talk about how people might react differently to each of the headlines. And a family tip sheet are 5 tips for applying critical thinking to any news story you see. There are lots of news stories flying around right now that are not super accurate, so this is a good time to be applying these skills. To warm up, you can play the digital compass. You just click on this, go ahead on in, and you click to get started. You choose start a new game, put in a username. I strongly recommend it be something your teacher will recognize, and go ahead and click start and play on through. It just takes a couple of minutes. Then when you're done, come on back to the website, go up to the tab. Remember, you're going to go to the tab until the drop-down drops down, and then select it. Now this is the criteria that we mentioned in the agenda for evaluating fake news versus questionable news versus credible news. So for example, when you see information that's very surprising, even unbelievable, you should begin to wonder if it's fake news versus something that's surprising but not unbelievable. Still have your question hat on. But credible news may or may not be surprising, but it should make sense. Article types, something that seems like it might be a hoax or satire, that's fake news. Hoaxes are articles that are meant to fool the reader into believing something that isn't true by trying to be as realistic as possible, and satire is basically the same thing but with a great sense of humor. Editorial pieces, or opinion pieces, are articles or blogs that are meant to persuade the reader to the author's opinion, and which may or may not include bias and leave out important facts that are generally counter to the persuasive argument being made. Whereas credible news is not an opinion piece. It's not an editorial. It's not a hoax or satire. You always want to check where these articles are coming from. Fake news is generally from a biased source, or it's not part of a credible news, academic, or government organization. Questionable stuff is likely to not come from one of those kinds of sources, and credible news generally always comes from that kind of a source. Always look at the author. Have they shown bias either in their biography or in previous articles? Questionable news may show bias, and credible news should not show any bias on the part of the author, either in their bio or in their previous articles. And most importantly, the key points in the article. If it's fake news, few, if any, can be corroborated by credible sites. My favorite fact-checking sites are Snopes and FactCheck. In an editorial or opinion piece, most of the key points can be corroborated, but there might be a whole bunch that are missing. And in credible news, all of the key points can be corroborated. Now, to take all of this information and practice, go ahead and play the social media test drive. You select this, and you click to get started, and then you just click and play on through reading stuff. And as you go through, after it introduces these key ideas again, then it's going to take you to some social media stories and walk you through things that might be clues that information is less than completely useful. So you're going to go through, read stuff, play on through, and then when you're done, when you get to the very end, go ahead and take a screenshot and submit it to your ELA teacher to show that you engaged with all this information. Down here, there is a link back on the Common Sense Media lesson site that shows you how to take a screenshot with various types of computers. So hopefully you can teach yourself how to do that. If you have any trouble, feel free to email me. And I hope you guys are staying well. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye.